Hey everyone, welcome to A Handful of Daisies. If you're new here, I'm Elaine. Thanks so much for checking out my channel. If you like thrift hauls, thrift flips, furniture flips, wood builds, and everything DIY, you're in the right place. If you aren't already subscribed, I would love for you to join our DIY family. For those of you already subscribed, thanks so much for supporting my channel. I appreciate you all. So let's get right into this week's project. I have had this wood fencing laying in my yard for the past 2 years. My husband's getting tired of cutting the grass around it, so I decided I'm going to find a project to use it today. So I started out by pulling all the boards apart, and then I'm going to lay them out and make 24 by 24 squared sections. Now we're going to be making barn quilts today. I've never made a barn quilt before, so this is my first time. There's a lot of different ways that you can make them. Today we're just going to be painting them. I may try another project a little bit later using separate little pieces of wood to build it out. But for today we're just going to paint. Now some of these boards were a little wonky, so I put those to the side. I wanted to get some that laid pretty straight. And then I'm going to measure them out to make sure I can get a 24 by 24 piece. So I'm going to need one more section. And it did end up being 24 and a quarter. So I'm going to make sure I take that into account when I do it lengthwise, so I can make sure it's square. Now when I first marked it, I marked it at 24 instead of 24 and a quarter, so I erased that and went back and marked it again. You know what they say, measure twice, cut once. I don't always do that, but it usually catches up with me when I don't. So I'm just going to stack them up and I'm going to take them over to my saw. Now normally I don't cut this many pieces at one time. It's probably not a good idea, but it worked out okay. I do have a little tool on the one side of my saw that'll hold it down for me. So I did use that. And then I'm going to get another piece of wood just so I can use it on the ends to make sure they're all even. Then I'll do the same thing on the front. And then I'll go ahead and cut it down. So I have all the pieces for one 24 by 24 section. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut another one. Just the exact same length. So the last portion, those pieces were too short, so I put those to the side. I'll use those on the back braces. Here's a look at all the pieces I cut out. I did enough for 5. We're only going to do 2 today. So I'm going to use my brad nailer with 18 gauge nails, and they're 1 inch long. I did pick up this brad nailer at Harbor Freight. So I'm just going to lay them all out. And then I'm going to use my board again to make sure the edges are straight, moving them around a little bit just to make sure they're fitting together well. Now you can see these back braces were a little short. They barely fit over the edges of the last pieces on the ends. I do come back afterwards and put a longer piece in the middle to make sure they're secure. And I'm using my Type Bond glue that I picked up at Lowe's to give it a little extra stability as well. Now I'm putting a lot of nails in here. I want this thing to not fall apart. So putting about 5 nails on each piece, just checking to make sure they're not coming through the bottom. After all 5 of these I put together, I ended up running out of nails, so I'm gonna have to go back to Lowe's and just update my stash of nails. I use these 1-inch ones a lot for projects. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for the other ones. Like I said, I did 5 altogether. And once I get them all done, I'm going to go ahead and sand them all over. I don't want any splinters coming off, no loose wood pieces, and I want to smooth them out a little bit. I don't want to take away from the ruggedness of the wood. I just don't want any splinters. So I'm going to do the top and the sides. And then a little bit on the back. You can see there where I did put that long brace on the back. Once that's done, I'm going to clean them up really well and then take them up to my craft room to get them painted. So for the base coat, I'm using Dixie Belle in cotton. It's a really bright white. So this is going to be my base coat and one of the colors on this piece. So I'm just going to give it a really good coat. After I painted the top part, I did realize that the wood was just so dry, so I used my spray bottle and put some water down just to help spread the paint out. I'm going to put that to the side to dry, and then I'm going to do the second one. I'm going to start out by spraying it down really well before I start putting the paint on. So now that that's all dried, I'm going to go through my templates to see which one I want to use. I have quite a few here to choose from. I just printed them off of Pinterest. So I think this is the one I'm going to go with. Then I'm going to try to choose my colors. This was the hardest part, I think, is trying to figure out what colors I want to use. And then on this first one, I'm going to measure it all out. And then I'm going to use my masking tape to tape it off. That way I get good clean lines as I'm painting. Now, I watched quite a few videos on other people doing this, and I found that there's really not an easy way to do this other than just measuring everything off and then taping it off. Again, I've never made these before, so it was a little difficult knowing exactly where to make my lines. I just kept looking back at my template to make sure I was getting somewhere close to what it should be. So then I decided to use Dixie Belle and Duck Egg for my first color. And I really didn't know for sure how I was going to paint this out. I just kind of chose which section I was going to put the colors in as I went. The next color I'm going to use is Dixie Belle's in the navy. It's a really deep navy blue. I thought it went really well with the duck egg. So I am painting that color on the edges as well. Then I sat there and thought about it for a few minutes to decide where I was going to go next with the colors. And I didn't like that big open space in the middle. So I decided I was going to do something a little different than the template I had. So I just made some more triangles in the middle. I'm just trying to alternate the colors a little bit. And after I finished that, I had to sit there and think for a few more minutes, what am I going to do next? Then I decided instead of choosing a different color, I'm going to mix in the navy with some white paint to lighten it a little bit. And I'm going to do the same thing with the duck egg. So my colors are in the same color range. I'm just going to mix that up really well. And then just kind of alternate where I'm putting that color. And this brush I'm using was a cheap brush I picked up from Dollar Tree. The bristles kept coming out. I just need to throw these brushes away. I've used them before, and every time I use them, I say I'm going to throw them away because they drive me crazy with the bristles coming out. Have you ever used these brushes? Dollar Tree stencil brushes are really great, but these brushes are awful. Okay, how many of you have been yelling at the screen that I missed a piece of that one triangle? I did see it and went back and fixed it. Let me know in the comments below. Were you yelling at your screen? Don't miss that spot. So now I'm sitting back and trying to decide, okay, what am I going to do to it now? So I used my hair dryer to dry it up before I pulled all of the tape off. Normally I'd pull the tape off when it's wet, but I didn't want to get paint everywhere. And then of course I didn't like just the white on the corners. So I taped that off, and I'm going to put more triangles on the corners. So this ends up turning out nothing like my template, but that's okay. Most of my DIY projects change in the middle. Let me know in the comments below, do your projects ever turn out the way you intended them to in the beginning? That's the great thing about crafting. You can change it up as you go. So the next thing I did with the colors is I took a little bit of in the navy and mixed it in the white and duck egg mixture, and then I took a little bit of the duck egg and mixed it in the white and in the navy mixture to give me another shade. And that's what I'm putting on these extra triangles. Here's a look at how that turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. So let's move on to the next one. This is the template that I'm going to use for the next one. Of course, is it going to turn out looking like that? Probably not. I'm going to make this one red, white, and blue. So instead of taping off this time, I'm going to try to freehand it. Well, keep in mind that I can't paint a straight line, so let's see how this turns out. This one has a lot of measuring, a lot of points. So bear with me as I get through sketching this one out. Now you can see already that my sections aren't all equal, but that's okay, we're gonna go with it. You can see my cup of coffee. I did have to stop and get my afternoon coffee before I tackled this one. Starting to come together. Can you see it yet? One more star in the middle. All right, let's see how straight of a line I can paint here. This is going to take 2 coats to cover up all those lines. Red paint I'm using is by Waverly. I'm just using a small brush to do the lines at first, and then I go back in with a little bit bigger brush to do the inside. This one did take a little while to paint just because I was trying to stay in the lines. So first section done. You can see my lines aren't exactly straight, but I'll clean them up when I do the inside white. So all the outside is going to be in the navy. And again, I'm just using a small brush to do the lines. and then I'll come back and fill in the rest. I did end up putting this on my Lazy Susan so I could turn it around and paint it a little bit easier. Like I said, I did end up putting 2 coats of paint on this. I did the inside white. I put about 3 coats on the inside white to cover up all those lines. Not sure what happened to the video of that. For some reason, my camera wasn't videoing on that part. Also sprayed them really well with polyacrylic spray. I put about 4 coats of that on as well. Here's a look at how they both turned out. Let me know in the comments below what you think of these. My first time doing barn quilts. Don't forget, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and also that like if you enjoyed this video. That helps my channel grow. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today.